This fight, the October 24th card, wasn't on the table or wasn't even talked about at the time that I decided that I was going to become a free agent after my last fight on my contract. It was more just the new opportunities, the new promotion. I think, every mixed martial artist thinks about fighting in the UFC, whether you're a guy like me who fought outside the UFC for 10 years, 11 years, or you're a guy who just started fighting. I never knew if it was for sure going to happen, but doors open and close at the right time, and that door opened, and I jumped through it, and here I am on Fight Week.
That's very impressive. So, as the backup of this main event, since you just mentioned it, you have the opportunity to face not one, but two lightweight champions who shares really different fighting style. One is ground-based Khabib, and then the other one is a stand and striking Gaethje. So your preparation must be really tough since you are dealing with miles away their fighting styles.
Yeah, but I guess in a weird way, if you look at Khabib as an extreme grappler and you look at Gaethje as an extreme striker, really, if you just mold them together, you got a guy. You got to prepare for a guy who's great on the ground, great on the feet. And that's essentially who I prepare for every single time. Every single time I've prepared for an opponent, I want to prepare my grappling as if I'm fighting, a guy like Khabib, who's arguably the best grappler in the world, and then a guy like Gaethje, who's arguably one of the best strikers in the world, and is just an absolute warrior out there. So for me, the preparation was, pretty cut and dry. Be the best and most well-rounded fighter that I can possibly be. I put in a great training camp. I've been training since March. Obviously the last fight on the Bellator contract was August. Took about a week off. Really didn't even take any time off. I just kept training, but I was doing some rehab and prehab and some workouts, and then went right back into another 6-7 week training camp, and here we are.
Wow. So aside from this fight, you have previously mentioned that Dana White changed the sport of MMA, which also helped you to increase your income. So let's talk something in ball weight. So bringing another major battle like this one, Gaethje versus Khabib, to the island under the COVID pandemic, how would this affect the future of MMA sports? And can you share some of your feeling about it?
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out there, so can you repeat the question?
Of course. So bringing another major battle to the Fight Island under the COVID-19 pandemic, how will this affect the future of MMA sports as a whole? And can you share some of your feelings about this match?
You're saying as far as me coming in, or if one of these guys gets COVID?
Well, you coming in.
I think, you look at mixed martial arts, or you look at mixed martial arts in 2020 as a whole, you look at 2020 as a whole, mm-hmm. It's been a crazy year. There's been so many things that have happened this year that, we thought we never would have seen. So if there was ever a time for a guy to step in and just be a replacement on standby, not to bring up old news, but Khabib has missed weight or had bad weight cuts in the past. I believe Khabib has gotten injured before. Gaethje's a guy who always gets to his fights, but there was reason for concern that this fight in particular needed a backup, needed a replacement, needed a guy waiting in the wings to step up, make weight, and show up. So I think it's a good idea. It's always a good idea, and you've seen the UFC do it for over the last couple of years. They've started to realize, okay, maybe there's not a backup fighter like myself here with no opponent, but we want to make sure there's another high level, in this case, lightweight fight. So say me and Tony Ferguson, who were going to be, if he would have signed on the dotted line, we would have fought in the co-main event. It would have been perfect. One of these guys gets injured or gets COVID. It would be unfortunate because myself or Tony, one of us wouldn't get to fight, but immediately that guy could go up and fight in the main event. So it makes a lot of sense, especially with the uncertainty that ensues sometime in mixed martial arts.
Well, your quality, as already said, more than just a backup. So final question, joining the UFC at the age of 34, which is, normally considered as the end of your peak time. So what would be your personal goals here? Is it to win a belt or just something else there, like a fighting spirit calling you?
No, it's always been to win the belt. And truth be told, going out in my last fight and finishing Benson Henderson, knocked out cold in 2 minutes. Just the way my body feels, I feel better at 34 than I did at 24, and that's not just blunder. I really do. I've taken care of my body. You know, the good thing about fighting outside of the UFC is you look at a lot of these guys in the UFC. The UFC is the hardest working promotion in the world. They are the most grinding promotion in the world. I've fought outside the UFC, fought on average of twice a year. Over the last 6-8 years. I haven't taken a ton of damage in a lot of my fights. I have a lot of quick finishes. So you look at the miles that are on me. Of course, I've had some wars, and those wars have made me into the man that I am, and the reason I became a big time free agent for the UFC. But for the most part, if you look at my last 10 fights, I haven't taken a ton of damage. So I feel better at 34 than I did at 24, and I truly believe within the next calendar year I will be the UFC lightweight champion.
So thank you. So you know what? Chinese fans are watching this live event, pay-per-view event in the midnight, which is uncommon compared to European fans and the American fans. Can you shout them out, like say some cheering words for us?
Oh yeah, thank you, China, for tuning in and staying up late into the wee hours of the night to watch UFC 254. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you at the top.
So thanks very much for the interview. If you're fighting this weekend, we wish you all the best. If you are not, we're really looking forward for your first UFC fight. Have a nice day, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And next we have Damon Martin with MMA Fighting.
Hey, Michael. Obviously, here we are. It's fight week. I know it's been kind of a weird run to get here. How has the experience been so far with the UFC, from getting to Fight Island, dealing with the quarantine, but then just your first experience with the organization after being with Bellator for so many years?
It's been really awesome, to be honest. Obviously this fighting on Fight Island in Abu Dhabi is a little bit different than probably a lot of other UFC fight weeks look. Not a lot different. It's a well-oiled machine. A lot of very high-level employees who are very good at their jobs, and they are on top of things. So obviously I realized this experience on Fight Island is a little bit different than maybe some other UFC fight weeks, but it's been awesome. As I said, the well-oiled machine that the UFC is, for me, getting the opportunity to be on camera, both stills and digital videos and media, because the UFC doesn't have any digital properties on me at all. So we're trying to build up this content, build up who I am, introduce me to the UFC fans, a new set of eyeballs, if you will. So it's been really awesome. And, weight cuts going well. The amenities are great here. At the W Abu Dhabi, when you have a whole hotel at your disposal. I have my own room, and then I have my own workout room with a sauna and stuff. So it's really cool. Abu Dhabi. I see why they're calling Abu Dhabi the new fight capital of the world. I'm excited to be here.
So obviously, Michael, this weekend, you're preparing for Khabib or Justin, in case that fight happens. I'm sure you already kind of responded on Twitter, a comment that Khabib made saying he didn't believe you were a high-level championship fighter. I believe you said something on Twitter. You look forward to proving him wrong. But what do you make of Khabib's comments? Because that's a guy you could be potentially fighting on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think him talking about me at all is it's flattering. To hear the champion talking about me, and chances are, like I said, Khabib is a respectful, great champion in this sport. He has accomplished what he has accomplished, and he's done it with grace for the most part. I think he's probably getting tired of getting asked about me. Because I was just a couple months ago, I was a guy who wasn't even signed to the UFC, and now people are talking about me fighting him for the title. You got me talking about fighting him for the title. But of course, coming to the UFC, what am I going to say? Hey, I want to come in and prove myself for 5 or 6 fights, and then maybe take a look at the title. No, I want to come in. I want to make a splash. I want to get thrown to the wolves right away and find out where I'm at. So him saying he doesn't even need to wrestle, use his wrestling to beat me is, I think that's somewhat of an elementary statement. I don't think that's at all accurate. And truth be told, as I've said numerous times, and I've told you in the past, I think I have the recipe to beat Khabib, and that's not me disrespecting him at all. I just have unwavering confidence in myself, unwavering confidence in my abilities and my calling on my life. Coming to the UFC at this time, the right moment for me to come out here, whether it's this weekend or it's months from now or a year from now, to get that UFC strap.
I know, you kind of expect this when you come in as a guy with a high-profile name like yourself, and you're, getting into a very high-profile situation like this. But you hear other fighters, taking digs at you, saying, you're a B-level fighter and all these kind of crazy things. Do you kind of smile and just say, I expected this? That's kind of the normal thing. You're coming in from another organization. You're coming in with a lot of hype behind you. Do you just kind of expect that kind of reaction?
Yeah, I did. And the good thing is people are talking about it. If I came in and nobody was talking about me or the media wasn't talking about me or Dana and the UFC brass didn't put me in this position to prove kind of where they see my skill set, where they see me as a free agent coming over. So I expect that from those guys. And trust me, I come in meaning no disrespect. I have a ton of respect for every single lightweight on the roster, especially the guys in the top 10. My future opponents, if you will. But here we are, Fight Island, Fight Week, UFC 254, and whether I get the fight or not, I will step into the UFC octagon soon. Today was the first day that I put on those, my UFC fight gloves that I will wear on October 24th if I get the call. I put on my fight shorts that I will wear if I get the call. But just merely putting on the UFC fight kit, just merely putting on the UFC gloves, that's not why I'm here. I'm here to win the UFC gold. So taking a little bit of backhanded comments from some of the top lightweights in the world, I'll take that to get this opportunity.
And last one for me, of course, you are preparing for Saturday. You're preparing for Khabib or Gaethje, and until that doesn't happen, I know you told me 5 minutes away from the fight, you'll be ready to walk out if that's what they need you to do. But if everything, if they end up fighting this weekend, we know Dustin is now going to fight Conor, or at least it looks like he's going to fight Conor in January. That kind of leaves Tony Ferguson as the odd man out. Again, just playing hypotheticals here. You don't fight this weekend. Is Tony Ferguson the most logical fight for your debut when you're ready to fight again, or are you just going to leave your options open?
This is a fight. This is the fight game in which the fight promoters do the matchmaking. But yeah, conventional wisdom would say, hey, yeah, the top 4 guys are booked right now. That leaves Tony Ferguson. He's been vocal about me and said some things about me. So obviously he knows that fight is looming. I think that's the logical best choice. Either I am who I say I am or I'm not. So we'll find out pretty quick against, I think, the scariest guy in the division. El Kukui is, he's got a screw loose. He fights like it. He's a scary guy to fight. So what better way to introduce the UFC fans to who I am than to go out there against Tony Ferguson, a perennial top guy, a guy who just lost his first fight a couple months ago, and he was on a 12-fight win streak before that. So I think it's a great opportunity for me to go out there, show my skill set. It's a scary fight, probably get into a war, so I'll be able to show my gall, show my heart, and introduce the UFC fans to who I am.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks.
Next, we have Jim Barcelone with Miami Herald.
Hey, yeah, thank you, Michael. I'm curious about that whole process because you're going to be a free agent. You're trying to focus, and you are focused on your fight with Bellator, and that's the last fight. When did you think about it a little bit even before that time, or to really put it off and then decided and thought about it after that last fight?
I think I first made my decision that I was going to go into free agency. And then once I made that decision, just started to even get a little bit more confident. It's almost like more confidence with my decision and more confidence in my abilities came once I made the decision that I was going to close the door. Not close the door to Bellator at the time. I didn't know I was going to close the door to Bellator at the time, but I was going to close the door to re-signing with them before my last fight. Once I did that, I kind of realized, okay, this is definitely something that I'm making the right decision here. I'm going to take a chance, take a gamble on myself. I'm going to bet on myself. And then as soon as I went out there and my performance against Benson Henderson couldn't have went better. Going out and getting a knockout in the first round in the first 2 minutes was the perfect way to head into free agency. But then even then, you still got to negotiate with these other organizations. You still got to, hope that the UFC call comes in and it's a good offer and it's an offer that you can live with and it's an offer that you're happy with. So it wasn't until I went to Vegas and I sat down with Hunter Campbell. I had a conversation with Dana White, numerous conversations with Dana White, that I knew that even though ink hadn't been put on the paper yet, I knew I was going to end up signing with the UFC within the next few days at that point. And that's kind of how it was. And then at that point, as soon as we signed that contract, it was, hey, what do you think about October 24th? What do you think about Ferguson or Poirier? Hey, what do you think about being the backup? That's kind of the succession of how it went. I said yes to all three of those questions. He kind of knew at that point I was going to say yes to whatever. Here we are.
Well, Michael, also with that, are you talking with family? Are you talking with Henry Hoof, anyone at Sanford MMA, with others leading up to that decision? Or are you more or less just, hey, I'm going to focus on this and just make this choice?
Yeah, no, I mean, I am a firm believer that I've made every big decision in my life while seeking wise counsel. And I have really, really great people around me. Phenomenal management. My wife is the most loving, supportive, and smartest, most cognitively there person that I've ever been around. So she helps me with a lot of my decisions. She's a great helpmate. And then, yeah, coaches. Henry Hoof, who is my head coach, he loves all the matchups for me in the UFC, top 5, top 10. And he's got confidence in me that I can go out and beat anybody in the world on any given night. So he knew that if I wanted to sign with the UFC, it was a good option. And we just had to wait until all the information trickled out. And then once it came out, we kind of knew what the offers were. We looked at them, and as soon as I saw the UFC offer, I said, "Where do I sign?" Here we are.
Did you have conversations with Bellator as well? And then when your decision came and you were going to go with UFC, did you call them up and just offer? I know you're a very respectful guy. You show that. I just wondering that the process there. And if you didn't, that's okay. Obviously, it's your thing. But I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no, I did. And, because even when you're making a change like that, you still, just because you're leaving, it wasn't because I left Bellator because I wasn't happy with Bellator or didn't like the way that their promotion went. It was, I wanted to take another opportunity, wanted to take another chance on myself. I wanted to go to the UFC. I wanted to fight some different guys. That was the gist of it. So yeah, when I made that decision, I made the call, talked to Scott Coker, talked to Rich Chew, talked to Mike Hogan, and spoke to a lot of Bellator employees, people that you wouldn't know because they're not the brass of the organization, but they're the people that are checking you in, the medicals, the operations, the front of house, back of house, production people. A lot of people that I spent the last 10 years working with. So made a couple different phone calls to a lot of important people and important people in my life. And it was the right decision. And I'm excited to move forward. So we'll see what happens next.
And lastly for me, Michael, and thank you again, I'm curious because, and I know there's head games and mind games and all this that go on. And I know you mentioned that, hey, they're UFC guys, top guys, they're talking about me, whether they're knocking me down a little bit or whatever, saying I'm from the B team, whatever it is. But hey, a lot of Bellator people have gone on to UFC and done very well for themselves.
Exactly. In this game, if nobody's talking about you, you're not moving forward in a lot of regards. So I get I'm the new kid on the block. I get I'm the new the new guy. I came from another organization, an organization that some people regard as the B leagues. So I knew those kind of comments were going to come. But for me, all I can do is put my head down, put the work in, show up, and be the man that I say I am. Sign on the dotted line and show up and do my job here. My job here is to be a replacement fight in case any of these guys in the main event fall out. And it's good to be talked about. It's good to be on these guys' radar. It's good to be in this position because it shows. I think it showed all the UFC lightweights right away where Dana and Sean Shelby and Hunter Campbell see my skill set and my abilities, regardless of what organization I fight for. I came in right away and I'm in this position, so I think we can build.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and that's all we have for you today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.